Are you wanting a break from the monotonous builds that Titan is currently having to deal with, essentially just kind of, funneling you into one specific idea of how to play? Well, check out this new ACD feedback fence setup I'm using for my Prismatic Titan. If you're just like, I just want to punch things and have a whole lot of damage reduction, this is the setup for you. Now, before I get into the video, you can follow me over on YouTube and Twitter at Byrdman778. Give a thumbs up on the video, subscribe, become a member, check out the dim link in the description. Now, let's get right on into the video. Now, we always like to start off with the exotic for the setup, and it's going to be that ACD feedback fence. Now, this has actually been changed up a whole lot of times, different like buffs and all that other stuff added to it, and the final product is actually something absolutely insane that I really do enjoy using. Reads Fury Conductors, melee hits grant armor charge, and you take less damage while you have an armor charge. Taking melee damage causes you to emit a burst of arc energy that jolts targets, consuming your armor charge and dealing damage based on the number of stacks consumed. Now, so your typical base amount of armor charges you get is 3. So at a full 3 stacks, you're going to be getting a 70% damage reduction to melee hits, and then that arc burst damage is going to be about 170. Now, obviously, with this setup, you can take as many armor charges as you want, up to 6. So at that number 6, it's going to be an 80% damage reduction, and then a 245 damage based on that jolt. So all around, this is really solid for those who just really want to be up in the thick of it and do a whole lot of punching, because you're going to be safe with just the damage reduction as is, and then enemies that even just touch you are going to be hurt because of it. Now, let's look at our Prismatic subclass and everything we're going to be using for this setup. On the super, I'm going to be running Blade Fury. One of the biggest reasons is one of the fragments we're going to be using for this setup, so that we are able to take advantage of a lot of woven mail. But at the same time, Blade Fury is probably the second best, in my opinion, super for Titan currently. Twilight Arsenal has definitely become that #1 spot, in my opinion, and Blade Fury is right there behind it. So this is still always going to be a really good option to use. For your abilities, I recommend Thruster, mainly just because, again, this is a melee focused setup. I think having that thruster available to you so that you're able to kind of move and close the gap a little bit faster is always going to be a big benefit to, again, melee focused Titans. For our melee attack, we're going to be using Thunderclap. Now, the biggest reason for this is because it's just providing us probably the most damage all around, but Thunderclap has also been given a bit of a buff in the final shape. We are getting more damage reduction while we are charging up that giant punch. So know that, again, especially with this being a very damage reduction heavy setup, you are going to be fine getting to charge up that punch and throwing it at anybody you want. And then for our grenade, we're going to be using Shackle Grenade. The biggest reason this is going to feed into our darkness side of our Transcendence bar. It's also going to help feed into one of the fragments we're going to be using for just a lot more damage for that Thunderclap. But at the same time, Shackle is just really great for just taking enemies out of the fight as is, especially when you're doing a melee build. You can just chuck this at somebody and run up to them and just punch them to death. So it's really great. For our aspects, we're going to be running Knockout. This is an absolute must, obviously, for a melee focused setup. When we are critically wounding a target or breaking their shield, our melee is going to be infused with arc energy, giving it more range and damage for a short time, and defeating a target is going to also make us amplified and restore a portion of our health. Defeating more powerful commands is going to increase that effect, so it is giving us more melee damage, more melee range, health, and also giving us amplify, which is going to feed into a couple different parts of the setup. Some things in our artifact mod, we're going to have galvanic armor. We need to be amplified for that, so this is a great way to do that, to again increase health regeneration and damage reduction. And then for our second aspect, we're going to be running Diamond Lance. This is going to help feed into, again, more parts of that Transcendence bar, just taking enemies out of the fight, so we're able to run up, punch them, do more damage. Shatter has been doing a whole lot better recently. It's got a lot more damage to it. It's also able to stun unstoppable champions. You're able to slow overload champion, so this is just all around a great aspect to have. For our fragments, we're going to be running Facet Protection. This is an absolute must, I think, on any Prismatic build, period, no matter what. While you're surrounded, you are more resistant to incoming damage, so you're getting that damage reduction. Again, with this entire setup, you have 4 different ways where you're stacking that, so this is just an absolute must regardless. Another one that I think is an absolute must is Facet of Courage. Your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. We have 2 different ways to do that, whether that is our Diamond Lance or that Shackle Grenade. So chuck that like a champion or something like that, get them that darkness debuff, hold that Thunderclap, and watch enemies just absolutely health just tank all the way down. Facet of Blessing, melee final blows start health regeneration, and while Transcendent, that's going to have a better effect for you and your nearby allies. I really just enjoy this for the fact, again, we are doing a melee focused setup, being able to just constantly punch and know that I'm going to be full on health right after that is really crucial. Facet of Purpose. Now this is kind of feeding into that, getting that woven mail. Whenever we pick up an orb of power, we are going to get that woven mail because it is based off of the super we currently have, Blade Fury. So again, this is like that fourth way to get that damage reduction. We have it through woven mail, we have it through Facet Protection, we have it through galvanic armor, and then we also have it through the feedback fence itself. It is great. And then finally, Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, ability final blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. This is obviously a great one because again, we are able to essentially activate all three of those in some capacity with this setup, with like snap of our fingers. So we're going to be able to constantly keep up that darkness side of our transcendence bar. Now looking at weapons you can use, again with this setup it is kind of melee focused, so I think a really important exotic to have on is going to be that tractor cannon. Repulsor Force, this weapon emits a powerful impulse that pushes enemies back and suppresses their abilities and makes them more vulnerable to incoming damage. So with this you are getting access to suppression to, you know, just take enemies out of the fight as is. So that alone is going to be great for Overload Champion, so you're able to, you know, mark that off your list there. But also the fact it's going to add that weakening effect to them as well, so they're going to be more susceptible to incoming damage. This is going to feed into our artifact mod as well. So just in general, really solid weapon to use. Now your other two weapons are pretty much whatever you want based on, you know, just matching like the other champs and stuff. With this setup, obviously we are a little bit lacking on like a good perfect coverage for like barrier champions. So you can put on something like an SMG, but on my top slot, I just always have the call on. It feeds into one of our artifact mods we're going to have on, and it's just a really meta weapon to be using right now. Now when it comes to the armor mods and everything we're going to be using for this setup, first up on our helmet, we are going to put on a hands on just to get that super back for us really fast. Blade Fury, it's a roaming super. I think roaming supers typically should be used as much as humanly possible, because again, they are definitely based around, you know, using a lot of like melee damage, being in the thick of it as much as possible. So I think this is a solid one. And then we also have a heavy and special ammo finder on, just so we're able to keep that, you know, ammo high for our call and our tractor cannon. When it comes to our gloves, we're going to be using triple heavy-handed. This is going to miss a 1 second cooldown on our powered melee final blows to create more power for ourselves. Do know while you're amplified and you have that arc punch going on, that counts as a powered melee, so you are going to be able to constantly just generate orbs from that as well. On our chest piece, typically I will go with like just damage resistance mods depending on what it is. I already have a lot of melee, so I decided to do some concussive dampening here, but I also put on a charged up just to get myself that fourth slot of the armor charge so that I'm able to take advantage of that a little bit more. So for that arc burst damage from the jolting effect of our ACD feedback fence, I'm going to be getting 200 damage based on that, and then for damage resistance, it's going to be about 73.3%. On our legs, we're going to be pretty much just trying to get our abilities back as much as possible while keeping up some health. First up, Invigoration, so that we're able to get some melee cooldown, Recuperation to get some health whenever picking normal power, then Absolution just to kind of cover all of our different abilities. And then finally, on our Titan Mark, we're going to be using Distribution, so that whenever we use that thruster around a target, we're going to be getting some cooldown for each of our different abilities. A 1-2 finisher, so that whenever we you know, use a finisher on our target, we're able to get that thunderclap back a little bit faster with it. This is just an easy one, just if you want to do that. I'd say this is like pretty much a flex spot. You can kind of use whatever you want here. But then the final one is going to be Powerful Attraction, so that whenever we use that thruster, we're going to pull in all those orbs of power that are just kind of sitting around the battlefield. Now when it comes to the artifact, a couple things here that I think are an absolute must. Again, if you are using the call, you're going to be wanting to have Overcharged Armory on and Winning Hand, so that you're able to just get that extra benefit to that Dealer's Choice Origin perk, as well as you need something like Threaded Blast on, because you're going to be creating tangles through your Shackle Grenade. So this is a great way to get that War Mind Cell effect just at the snap of your fingers. In the fourth slot, you're going to want all three of these prismatic ones. First, Void Hegemony. While you have the Prismatic subclass equipped, defeating a weakened target grants a small bit of overshield. You are going to be able to create this just from using your tractor cannon on targets. You know, just shoot at a wide array of enemies. They're all going to become weakened. They're going to be defeated, and then you're just going to get free overshield from that. Radiant Orbs, so that whenever you pick up more power, you can become radiant. So this is obviously going to feed into that easy ability, a way just to be able to access like barrier championing, stunning. And then finally, Galvanic Armor. We've been talking about all the different damage reduction ways. While we are amplified, incoming damage from combatants is reduced. In the fifth column, you're going to be wanting Transference, gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendent. Obviously, that's great because we're doing a melee focused setup. But then also Weapon Final Blows while Transcendent, refund Line Dark Energy after it ends. Great way just to get that back a little bit faster. And then finally, Shield Crush. So we're going to have access to Woven Mail and Overshield to get that extra melee recharge rate and damage. And then also we're going to have Amplified Radiant active pretty much all the time to get that extra, again, grenade and damage recharge and just increased damage. Now let's talk about how this is going to be viable against different champions. First up, for our barrier, obviously this is the one where I'm kind of saying, hey, just try to match, you know, the weapon for whatever it is, whether it's a pulse rifle or SMG. Do you know though, if you want to, you can just use the radiant effect on a base weapon that doesn't have a mod active at that time. But again, I just think it's easier just to grab like an SMG and match that up. For unstoppables, we are going to have the ability to shatter targets with Diamond Lance. We're going to be able to suspend them with our Shackle Grenade. But you can also just, you know, again, use the Call of the Season because it is unstoppable sidearm. And then finally, for Overload, we're going to have a couple different things here. First, a jolting effect from our ACD feedback fence. Just run up, let the Overload punch you. They're going to get jolted from that. Easy. There you go. You can use Diamond Lance to slow them down. And then you can also use your Tractor Cannon to suppress them by just using a simple shot of it. Thanks so much for checking out the video, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it. Again, let me know some of your interests in seeing down below, and make sure you're giving a thumbs up on the video to help out the algorithm. You can also subscribe and become a member to help us out. Go into the description down below and get the dim link so they're able to just copy the setup over and check out my max roll page. Me, Chadley99, Shield Maiden, Chunky, and Squirrely Dan have all been working really hard to, you know, just create a bunch of different setups and resources for people over there. So make sure you're going over to max roll. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great night, day, or whatever it may be.